Imagine being at the very edge of your endurance, where prayers have turned into whispers, and faith feels like holding on to a thread in the dark. You've cried, waited, and wondered if heaven has gone silent. You've watched others rise, while you've stood still, questioning if God remembers your name. Yet, in that stillness, in that very moment when you think nothing is changing, something divine is happening, beyond what your eyes can see. There are seasons when God works quietly, rearranging the unseen before unveiling the miracle. You see, when God flips the situation, He doesn't do it gradually, He does it suddenly. The same night Joseph was in prison, he woke up the next morning as the second most powerful man in Egypt. One night Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. The next morning he was untouched. And those who plotted against him faced the very fate they designed for him. When God decides it's time, what held you yesterday will release you overnight. You may not realize it, but heaven's clock doesn't tick like man's. What looks like delay to you is preparation to God. Every prayer you whispered, every tear that fell, every moment you refused to give up, it's being collected, stored, accounted for. God has not forgotten the labor of your love or the patience of your faith. He's been preparing the table not just for you to eat, but for your enemies to watch. When God flips the situation, it's never subtle. He does it in such a way that no one can deny His hand in your life. Those who laughed at you will be silent. Those who overlooked you will be forced to acknowledge the grace upon you. God specializes in divine reversals, the kind that leaves you speechless, trembling in awe of how swiftly He can turn pain into purpose, loss into victory, and rejection into recognition. So, if you're in the middle of a storm, don't curse it. It's only the wind before the breakthrough. If you're surrounded by opposition, don't despair. It's the pressure that precedes your promotion. God doesn't need a committee to bless you. He doesn't require permission to favor you. When He says, now, no power in heaven, on earth, or under it can stop the shift. Perhaps your situation looks impossible. The door is sealed, the mountain is high, the path is gone. But remember this, one word from God can change everything. Not a month from now, not next year, overnight. God is not bound by human timing. He moves in divine precision. He knows exactly when to send that call, that opportunity, that person, that miracle. And when it comes, it won't come as a whisper. It will come like a flood of grace that washes away the years of waiting. You'll realize why it had to take this long. You'll see that what seemed like delay was God protecting you from settling for less than His promise. You'll understand that the pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation for a greater purpose. So lift your head. The night isn't the end. It's the setup for dawn. The same God who turned mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty, and captivity into freedom is about to flip the situation in your favor. Not in a distant tomorrow, but suddenly, swiftly, overnight. When God moves, He doesn't need your strength, only your faith. He doesn't need your plan, only your surrender. Because when He acts, the impossible becomes inevitable. What once felt heavy will be lifted. What once broke you will bless you. What once looked like the end will become the very evidence of His beginning in your life. Hold your peace, child of God. Heaven is working on your behalf. Before this night passes, something in the unseen will shift. You may not hear it, but you will feel it. You may not understand it, but you will witness it. The hand of God is turning the page, and your story, the one you thought was over, is about to astonish even you. There is something mysterious, almost sacred about God's timing. To the human heart, waiting feels like punishment, but to God, waiting is the womb of miracles. When we ask, "Why not now?" heaven answers, "Because the moment must magnify my glory, not your impatience." God is never early and he is never late. His actions are deliberate, his silence is intentional, and his delays purposeful. Every second in God's timeline has meaning, even when it appears that nothing is moving. Think of the night before deliverance. It's always the darkest. The Israelites stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them. The sea didn't part when they first arrived. It didn't open when fear gripped their hearts. It opened when Moses lifted his staff at the exact moment God had appointed. That is how divine timing works. It may not align with your schedule, but it will always align with His purpose. God is not interested in meeting your deadlines. He is interested in fulfilling His destiny for you. When you feel delayed, you are not being denied. What looks like stagnation in the natural is divine alignment in the spiritual. God is aligning circumstances, people, and places that you cannot see. He is preparing the right door, not just any door. He is arranging the right connection, not just any contact. He is setting up a blessing that will not only elevate you, but also testify of His faithfulness. When it happens, you will know it wasn't luck, coincidence, or chance. It was the perfect orchestration of heaven. But here is the truth most cannot bear. God's timing requires trust, and trust is born in uncertainty. To trust God is to surrender your control, to let go of your own understanding, and to rest in the knowledge that He sees what you cannot. Waiting tests your faith, your patience, and your humility. It exposes whether you want God's will or your own will wrapped in His name. Many pray for miracles, but few are willing to wait for them in silence. Yet it is in that silence that faith matures. When God delays, He is not ignoring you, He is perfecting you. He is teaching your soul to depend on Him rather than the outcome. He is shaping your character so that when the blessing arrives, you will not lose it through pride or fear. Every unanswered prayer has a divine reason. Sometimes God withholds the blessing until you can carry it with wisdom. Other times He delays it so that those who mocked you will witness your elevation and know that it was His hand alone that did it. Think of Lazarus. Jesus could have gone immediately when He heard Lazarus was sick, but He waited, and in that waiting Lazarus died. To everyone watching it looked like failure, but to God it was the setup for a greater revelation. If Jesus had healed Lazarus, He would have been known as a healer, but by raising him from the dead, He was revealed as the resurrection and the life. What looked like delay was actually divine design, the perfect moment when His glory could not be denied. The same is true in your life. You've been praying, crying, asking, and wondering why God hasn't answered. But what you don't realize is that He's not trying to break your heart. He's building your testimony. When He moves, it will not just change your situation. It will glorify His name. People will look at your story and see the fingerprints of God all over it. The breakthrough will come at the moment when your endurance, patience, and faith have reached maturity. So don't despise the waiting. Heaven's silence is not neglect, it's precision. God's pauses are not punishment, they are preparation. One day you'll look back and say, if it had happened earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. If it had happened my way, I would have ruined it. But God, in His perfect timing, did it beautifully. Let your heart rest in this truth. God's timing is never late. The same hand that wrote the stars into motion is arranging your story with perfect care. The blessing you've been praying for is not lost. It's in transit, guided by divine timing. And when it arrives, it will come so suddenly, so powerfully, that you'll stand in awe and whisper, "Now I understand why I had to wait." Every great elevation begins with a season of humiliation. Every crown first rests upon a bowed head. The path to glory is never lined with comfort, but with lessons that carve humility into the soul. God often uses struggle not to destroy you, but to refine you. He allows life to press you, break you, and humble you, not because He takes pleasure in your pain, but because He is shaping your heart to handle the weight of His blessing. If elevation came too early, pride would corrupt it. If success arrived before your soul was ready, it would become your downfall instead of your testimony. That is why God doesn't just open doors. He builds the person who will walk through them. Struggle is the divine workshop where He molds strength, wisdom, and character. Every tear you've shed, every night you've spent questioning why, was not wasted. It was part of the sacred preparation for something greater than you can imagine. Look closely at those whom God has truly elevated. You'll find one thing in common. Before they rose, they were humbled. Joseph wore a robe of favor, but he had to wear chains before he could wear a crown. David was anointed king, but he spent years running from caves before he sat on the throne. Even Christ Himself, the Son of God, was humbled, despised, and rejected before He was exalted. Humility precedes glory. It is the soil in which greatness grows. The struggle humbles you by reminding you that you are not in control. God is. It strips away false confidence, pride, and self-reliance until all that's left is faith. And when you reach that point, when you say, "Lord, I can't do this without you," heaven responds, "Now you're ready." Because elevation without humility is dangerous. It blinds the heart and destroys the soul. But humility learned through struggle anchors you in gratitude when God lifts you high. Have you noticed how struggle changes the way you see people? Before the pain, you might have judged others easily, thinking they simply weren't strong enough. But after your own breaking, compassion grows where pride once lived. You start to understand that everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see. You become gentler, wiser, and slower to speak. That's how God prepares a leader, not through applause, but through adversity. The world sees struggle as a curse. God sees it as a classroom. In that classroom, He teaches lessons that prosperity could never teach. Patience when things don't move, gratitude when blessings come, and faith when everything else is uncertain. He uses delay to teach dependence, and loss to teach love. And when you've learned those lessons, He begins to lift you, not because you've earned it, but because you're ready to handle it with humility. Sometimes your struggle doesn't just humble you, it protects you. You may not realize it, but certain heights can destroy a person who isn't rooted in humility. God delays your rise not to deny your destiny, but to deepen your roots. He lets you experience lack so that when abundance comes, you'll remember how to appreciate it. He lets people betray you so that when loyalty finds you, you'll cherish it. Every wound, every disappointment, every unanswered prayer, all of it becomes the training ground for greatness. The truth is, struggle reveals what's real. When everything is stripped away, you see who you truly are and who truly stands with you. That awareness is a gift, because God cannot elevate a person still surrounded by deception. He uses the struggle to purify your circle, to separate pretenders from the genuine, and to remind you that when He finally lifts you, no man can claim the glory. So, if you find yourself in a season of struggle, don't despise it. It is not your downfall, it is your formation. You're being built quietly, shaped spiritually, and strengthened invisibly. The pain you feel today is the preparation for the platform you will stand on tomorrow. One day, you'll look back and realize that the struggle that once humbled you was actually the divine hand of God preparing you for the elevation that honors you. When the appointed time comes, you won't rise arrogantly, you'll rise gracefully. You'll carry not the weight of pride, but the fragrance of gratitude. And that's when heaven smiles, for God always exalts the humble and brings down the proud. The deeper the humility, the higher the elevation. There is a sacred mystery in God's way of preparing His chosen ones. He hides them. While the world races for recognition, God tucks His treasures away in silence. He does not display what is still in formation. Like a seed buried in the dark soil, your potential grows where no one can see it. To others it may appear that nothing is happening, no progress, no movement, no sign of success. But beneath the surface, God is at work, shaping your destiny in the secret place. You see, revelation without preparation leads to destruction. Many want to be seen before they are ready to be sustained. But God in His wisdom hides you to protect you, not from the world, but from premature exposure. Some people would misunderstand your calling, others would envy your gift or manipulate your purpose. So God covers you under obscurity until your roots are deep enough to handle the weight of visibility. When God hides you, it's not rejection, it's refinement. Think of Moses. For 40 years he lived in the wilderness before leading a nation out of slavery. Think of David, anointed to be king yet sent back to tend sheep. Think of Joseph, given dreams of greatness yet thrown into a pit and forgotten in prison. God hid each of them, not because they were unworthy, but because their purpose was still maturing, and when the time came for their revealing, they were unshakable, not because of the applause, but because of the preparation hidden behind the silence. Hidden seasons are the most misunderstood. You pray, you work, you dream, yet it feels like no one notices. You see others advancing while you remain unseen. That's when doubt creeps in, whispering, maybe I'm not chosen. But God hides those He treasures most. Diamonds are formed in darkness. Oil is pressed in private. Greatness is refined away from the noise of the crowd. God is not ignoring you. He's protecting what He's building within you. When you're hidden, God is teaching you things that public life can't. He teaches you patience, so you don't chase after man's validation. He teaches you discernment, so you can tell the difference between opportunity and distraction. He teaches you humility, so when the spotlight finally finds you, you don't forget the one who lit it. These are lessons learned only in silence, in the secret fellowship between your soul and your Creator. There are people who rise quickly, shining bright for a moment, then fading just as fast. Why? Because they were revealed too soon. They sought exposure without endurance, recognition without refinement. But when God hides you, He's building longevity, not popularity. You may not have the applause now, but you'll have the anointing that lasts. You may not have the platform today, but when the curtain finally lifts, you'll carry power that cannot be imitated. God's hiddenness also protects you from counterfeit connections. If He revealed you too early, wrong people would attach themselves to your rising light. They'd drain your energy, distort your purpose, or take credit for what only God deserves. So He allows you to walk alone for a while, not to punish you, but to preserve you. He is teaching you that solitude with Him is safer than success without Him. You might look around and wonder why you're being overlooked. You're doing the work, giving your all, yet doors seem sealed. But here's the truth. You are not being overlooked. You're being overseen. God's eye is on you. He knows the exact moment to move you from the background to the forefront. When He reveals you, it won't require striving or self-promotion. It will be unmistakable. Those who never noticed you will suddenly recognize you, and those who doubted you will have no choice but to see the hand of God upon your life. When a seed is buried, it looks like it has been forgotten, but soon it breaks the soil and surprises everyone who thought it was gone. That's what God is doing with you. He's been nurturing your potential in hiddenness, and one morning you'll rise, not as the same person who was buried, but as someone transformed by the divine process. So if you find yourself in a hidden season, don't despise it. Embrace it. The silence is your safety. The delay is your shield. The obscurity is your protection. When God hides you, it's because He is investing deeply in you. He is building something eternal, something that cannot be destroyed by criticism, competition, or chaos. And when the time comes, when He finally reveals you, the world won't just see your success. They'll see His glory shining through your life. You'll emerge not as someone who fought to be noticed, but as someone chosen to be unveiled. Every life touched by divine purpose carries a story of wounds, not random ones, but sacred scars carved by the very forces that tried to destroy it. The enemy's intent was your downfall, but God's intention was transformation. What broke you was never meant to bury you. It was meant to build you. The ashes you cried over will one day become the soil where your destiny blooms. This is the mysterious beauty of God's justice. He turns what was designed for evil into the very thing that elevates you. There are moments in life when the pain feels unbearable, when betrayal cuts so deeply that it silences your voice. You wonder why God allowed it, why He stood by as others wronged you, abandoned you, or tore your heart apart. But here lies a truth only time and faith can reveal. The same stones thrown to wound you are the ones God uses to build your foundation. The pit Joseph was thrown into became the first step toward the palace. The cross that symbolized death for Christ became the very altar of salvation. Destruction in the hands of God becomes destiny. Pain has a way of opening your eyes to what comfort could never show you. It teaches you to see clearly, to discern deeply, to feel compassionately. What was meant to destroy your spirit actually awakens it. When the fire came, you thought it would consume you, but it refined you instead. The pain purified your purpose. It stripped away illusions, exposed fake friendships, and revealed who you truly are when everything else is taken away. It is in these moments of breaking that God rebuilds you, according to His design, not the world's. The enemy's greatest mistake was underestimating what God could do with your suffering. He thought the betrayal would silence you. It made you wiser. He thought the loss would destroy you. It made you resilient. He thought the rejection would end your story. It gave you a new beginning. Every wound became wisdom. Every tear became strength. Every fall became a lesson that fortified your soul. This is the divine paradox of grace. The deeper the breaking, the stronger the building. You see, if everything had gone smoothly, you would have settled for less. You would have mistaken comfort for calling. But pain awakened a hunger in you that peace could never provoke. It drove you closer to God, deeper into faith, and sharper in purpose. The very people who wounded you unknowingly contributed to your transformation. Their cruelty was the hammer, but God was the builder. They struck to harm, but He used each blow to shape something eternal within you. When you look at your life now, you might still see fragments, pieces scattered by storms and seasons you didn't deserve. But to God, those pieces are not ruins, they are materials. What others discarded as broken, He calls valuable. What others abandoned, He redeems. What others buried, He resurrects. Your pain was not wasted. It was invested into the architecture of your destiny. Think of the story of Joseph again. The betrayal of his brothers, the false accusations, the imprisonment, each event felt like an ending. Yet, when the famine came and his brothers bowed before him in Egypt, Joseph saw it clearly. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That is the revelation every believer eventually reaches, that pain has purpose, that heartbreak has harvest, that loss carries hidden life. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and thank God for every closed door, every goodbye, every sleepless night. You'll realize that what was meant to destroy you actually positioned you. The valley you despised became the training ground for your victory. The people who left you taught you how to stand alone with God. The moments that shattered you became the very chapters that shaped you into someone unbreakable. So, hold your peace. What tried to kill your purpose only confirmed you had one. The fire didn't destroy you because you were built for it. The storm didn't drown you because God Himself was in the boat with you. You've been refined by trials not to prove your strength, but to reveal His sovereignty. The pain you carry is not a mark of defeat. It's the seal of divine survival. One day your story will become someone else's survival guide. They will see the light that shines from your scars and realize that God truly works all things, not some things, but all things, together for good. The destruction they see today is only the foundation He's using to build your destiny tomorrow. There is a pain that comes not from failure but from rejection, the kind that leaves you questioning your worth, your path, and even God's plan for your life. You gave your best, opened your heart, believed deeply, and still the door closed. The opportunity faded, the person walked away. The answer you longed for was simply no. In those moments, the human heart aches to understand why, but in the unseen, God smiles. Not because you're hurting, but because He knows what's ahead. What feels like a denial is often divine direction. Every no from man carries within it a hidden yes from heaven. You see, God's guidance rarely comes with explanations. He doesn't always tell you why something didn't work out. He just reroutes your steps quietly. What looks like rejection is often His protection. He shuts doors not to withhold something good, but to preserve something sacred. He knows what you do not. The intentions behind the smiles, the traps behind the offers, the heartbreak behind the promise. You cry over what didn't happen, while God is rejoicing over what didn't destroy you. Sometimes we get so attached to our plans that we mistake them for destiny. We say, "This is it. This is the opportunity, the relationship, the future." But when God says no, it's not because He wants to withhold joy. It's because He's guarding purpose. If you had received everything you wanted, you might have missed everything you needed. Some doors close not because you're unworthy, but because you've outgrown what's behind them. Think of Jonah, running in the opposite direction of his calling, chasing comfort instead of purpose. God sent a storm, not to punish him, but to redirect him. The storm that looked like destruction was actually grace disguised as chaos. The no you hear today may sound painful, but it's God's way of steering your life towards something your heart can't yet comprehend. He's not rejecting you, He's realigning you. Every no from people carries a deeper yes from God. When others say you're not enough, He says you're chosen. When they overlook you, He's preparing your own table. When they abandon you, He draws you closer. What you lost in human approval, you gain in divine intimacy. Those who walked away made room for the ones heaven is sending. The rejection you faced didn't reduce your value, it revealed it. God removes people and opportunities that cannot handle the weight of your calling. Sometimes God allows you to knock on doors that won't open because He wants to teach you discernment. He wants you to stop chasing validation from people who were never meant to see your worth. Every unanswered message, every broken promise, every closed door, all of it is God whispering, "Trust me, I have something better." The very places that refuse to receive you will one day witness the favor that follows you. Remember Joseph again. When Potiphar's wife lied, the prison door closed behind him. It seemed like the end, but that no from man positioned him for Pharaoh's yes. Daniel's enemies plotted to end him, but the king's no to his freedom became God's setup for a miracle that would glorify his name. Every great story in Scripture carries this pattern. Rejection precedes revelation. The no is never the end. It is the threshold to something holy. When you look back on your life, you'll realize how many no's were actually God saving you from heartbreak, from wasted years, from the wrong crowd, from spiritual decay. He didn't let that person stay because they would have weakened your purpose. He didn't let that job last because it would have distracted your mission. He didn't let that door open because there was something behind it not meant for you. He saw the full picture when all you saw was pain. And when his yes finally comes, you will understand why every other answer had to be no. You'll see how the delays taught you dependence, how the losses purified your desires, and how the silence strengthened your spirit. The door he opens will fit perfectly. No forcing, no striving, no confusion. His yes will come with peace, with alignment, with undeniable favor. You won't have to chase it, it will find you. So, take heart. Every no was never rejection. It was redirection. Every closed door was God's gentle hand guiding you toward what your soul truly needs. What you thought was the end was merely the curve in a divine path leading to your destiny. And when his yes finally comes, as it surely will, it will not just answer your prayer, it will redeem every tear you cried along the way. There comes a moment in every believer's life when heaven seems quiet. You pray, but there is no answer. You cry, but there is no response. You seek signs, yet all you hear is silence. It is in this silence that many lose faith, assuming God has turned away or forgotten them. But the silence of God is not the abandonment of God. It is the sacred space where he works in ways too deep for human understanding. When heaven is silent, it does not mean God is gone. It means he is setting the stage for something greater than words can explain. Silence is not punishment, it is preparation. God speaks loudly when giving instruction, but he is silent when testing trust. The teacher does not talk during the exam. You already have what you need. Now he waits to see if you will still believe, even when you cannot hear him. This is the furnace of faith, the quiet place, where your roots either break or grow deeper. The silence of God strips away every false comfort and reveals the true state of your heart. It asks the question, will you still trust me, even when I say nothing? Consider Job, a man righteous in every way, suddenly surrounded by loss, pain, and confusion. Heaven was silent. His prayers seemed to vanish into the void. Yet, though his heart was crushed, his faith whispered, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." Job's silence was not evidence of God's absence, but the stage for God's revelation. When God finally spoke, he didn't just restore Job, he multiplied everything he had lost. What felt like abandonment was actually the setup for restoration. You see, God's silence doesn't mean inactivity, it means intimacy. In his silence, he is closer than you think. He walks beside you in the shadows, shaping your spirit to stand firm without constant reassurance. Sometimes if he spoke too soon, you wouldn't grow. If he comforted too quickly, you wouldn't develop endurance. God's silence teaches what words never could: patience, trust, and the kind of faith that doesn't depend on proof. There's a divine rhythm to God's silence. When he hides his voice, he is inviting you to seek his presence. When he withholds the answer, he is teaching you to love him beyond outcomes. It's easy to worship God when he's speaking, blessing, and revealing. But true faith is forged when you can say, even when I hear nothing, I know he's still working, because in the silence, God is not far. He is focused. He is aligning people, preparing paths, and arranging timing that only his perfect wisdom could see. Think of Jesus before the crucifixion. As he prayed in Gethsemane, heaven was silent. No angel came to comfort him this time. No voice thundered from the clouds. Only silence. Yet that silence carried divine purpose. It was not God's absence, it was the setup for redemption. Through that silence came salvation for all humanity. What looked like the quiet of abandonment was actually the stillness before the greatest victory the world had ever known. In your own life, God's silence may be the quiet before your breakthrough. It may be the pause before your promise. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence does not forget how to speak to his children. If he is quiet, it's because the lesson is already given and the miracle is already in motion. You just haven't seen the full picture yet. Silence is the final test before manifestation. Sometimes the silence of God protects you. If he answered too early, you might settle for what's comfortable instead of what's divine. If he revealed his plan too soon, the enemy might interfere. Silence hides the blueprint from eyes that don't belong to see it. It guards your promise until it's strong enough to be revealed. So, don't confuse God's quietness with neglect. He is still your shepherd, even when you can't hear his footsteps. He is still guiding you even when the road feels dark. He is still working behind the curtain while your heart wonders what's next. In fact, the silence is often the sign that something powerful is about to unfold. There will come a day when his silence breaks, when everything you waited for suddenly makes sense. The prayers that seemed unanswered will be fulfilled in a single stroke of his hand. You'll look back and realize that every moment of silence was divine strategy, not divine absence. God was never ignoring you. He was preparing everything around you for your arrival. Hold your faith in the silence. That's where the strongest believers are born. When the noise fades and the world falls quiet, the whisper of God's faithfulness grows loud in your soul. The silence is not empty, it's pregnant with promise. What feels like nothing is actually the unseen movement of everything. When God begins to move, he never returns you to what was, he advances you to what should have been. Divine restoration is not about going backward, it's about being placed in alignment with a destiny that delay tried to steal. You see, God is not in the business of rewinding time, he redeems it. What you lost in years, he replaces with acceleration. What you missed in seasons, he multiplies in moments. When God flips your situation, he doesn't merely repair the broken pieces. He builds something better from the fragments. We often pray for God to give us back what we had, but he never does, because what you had was too small for where he's taking you. That relationship, that opportunity, that place of comfort, it served its purpose, but it cannot hold your future. God's restoration is not a return to the familiar. It's a revelation of your true position. When he flips the situation, you don't go back to being who you were. You step into who you were meant to be all along. Look at the story of Job. After unimaginable loss, God restored him, but not to the same state he was in before. The scripture says the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. That's the divine principle. When God restores, he multiplies. He doesn't return what was taken. He replaces it with what was always meant to be yours in fullness. The season of suffering becomes the soil for your double portion. And when that moment comes, when God finally flips the script, it happens suddenly. Overnight, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister. Overnight, Esther went from orphan to queen. Overnight, Daniel went from captive to counselor to kings. None of them were restored to their starting point. They were elevated beyond it. That is how God works. When he restores you, he doesn't return you to the pit. He positions you in the palace. He doesn't bring you back to the desert. He leads you into the promised land. He doesn't give you the same life. He gives you the life you were created for before pain ever entered your story. Every delay you endured was not wasted time. It was investment time. While you thought nothing was happening, heaven was compensating. God was gathering every injustice, every tear, every sleepless night, storing them as currency for your elevation. His restoration comes with interest. You lost years to heartbreak, but he will return joy that overflows. You lost opportunities to betrayal, but he will open doors that no man can shut. You lost peace to confusion, but he will give you clarity that passes understanding. God never restores equally. He restores abundantly. Sometimes you'll see him rebuild your life in such a way that even the pain begins to make sense. You'll realize that if the betrayal hadn't happened, you wouldn't have discovered your purpose. If the door hadn't closed, you wouldn't have walked the path that led you here. If the people hadn't left, you wouldn't have learned to stand alone with God. He allowed those losses not to punish you, but to position you. Every disappointment was a divine detour toward destiny. When the shift finally comes, it will be clear that it was never about what you lost. It was always about what you were becoming. You will see that the hands that broke you were not stronger than the hands that are now blessing you. You will see that every ending was secretly an introduction to something greater, and you will stand in awe, not just because of what you received, but because of who you became in the waiting. Sometimes God hides his best work inside what feels like your worst pain. He doesn't just restore what the enemy took, he redeems the version of you that was crushed along the way. He brings back your confidence, your peace, your strength, your vision. And this time, they come rooted in wisdom. You're not returning as the same person who was broken. You're returning stronger, softer, wiser, more faithful. And when people see you rise, they'll be amazed, not only because of what God did for you, but because of how he did it. The same place where you fell will become the ground where you stand tall. The same people who doubted you will witness your divine promotion. The same situation that humiliated you will become your testimony of glory. God doesn't just reverse situations, he redefines them. So don't pray for what you lost. Pray to be aligned with what was meant for you all along. Because when God flips your situation, he doesn't bring you back to normal. He brings you into overflow. You'll realize that you were never behind. You were being prepared. You were never forgotten. You were being hidden for the right time. And when that time arrives, the doors will open effortlessly, the blessings will flow naturally, and your soul will whisper in awe, "Now I see what you were doing all along." When God restores, he restores completely, not to where you were, but to where you were destined to be. That is the promise of divine reversal. You won't return to the life you lost. You'll rise into the one heaven always intended for you. When God decides to flip your situation, he does it in such a way that no one, not even you, can deny his hand in it. What once felt like the end becomes the beginning of something divinely orchestrated. The nights you thought were wasted were actually the hours heaven was working. The pain that felt unbearable was the very pressure that birthed your purpose. You see, God's ways are not your ways. His timing is not your timing, and his plans are never small, never ordinary, never incomplete. If you have walked through seasons of silence, if you have faced rejection, if you have endured loss and waited while others ran ahead, hear this: you have not been forgotten. You have been prepared. God has been aligning every detail, gathering every broken piece, and crafting a masterpiece out of what was meant to destroy you. The story you're living is not over. It's being rewritten by the author who never wastes a single tear. When the turnaround comes, and it will happen suddenly. The same way morning replaces night without struggle, God will shift your story without warning. You'll wake up one day and realize the pain has lifted, the burden has broken, and the favor of God has found you. What was once your deepest sorrow will become the testimony that lifts others. Those who doubted you will stand silent, and those who hurt you will witness the power of divine justice unfold. You will understand that nothing was lost. It was all being realigned. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment was heaven's design to position you exactly where you were always meant to be. God doesn't restore to what was. He restores to what should have been. He doesn't take you back. He takes you beyond. He doesn't just fix your situation. He flips it so powerfully that your struggle becomes your strength and your scars become your crown. So, lift your head. Wipe your tears. The same God who watched over you in the valley is about to reveal you on the mountaintop. You are stepping into the chapter that will make sense of every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, and every painful goodbye. The heavens are shifting, and your name is being spoken in places you've never imagined. God is about to flip the situation in your favor. Not gradually, not eventually, but overnight. And when he does, your only response will be awe. You'll look around, see what he has done, and whisper with trembling joy, "It was worth the wait."